Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. And Dad, we're going to start off with our foundational verse because we need it, because we're going to hit a topic that you got a little hot and heavy on. And so we're going to calm you down with this: the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Dad, breathe. Breathe that verse in. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. You know, the problem is that
I saw veins popping from your head. Are you really okay?
not, I'm okay because God is in control. But you know, there are some people that have nothing to do with God. They don't know God, and part of those people are people that should know better because they're involved in major organizations of our society.
Yeah.
And they should understand the common sense normality of human nature, but they don't. And it just drives me bananas.
See what I told you, everybody? He's hot. But Dad, the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. That brings us peace because he's in control. I think this is good. What's happening on the world's good because we get to see a whole nother level of things that we never thought was even possible. Like, people keying Teslas and Cybertrucks because they're so angry at the maker, and it doesn't make any sense. But someone hopefully who can bring some sense to the conversation is this guy right here, Mr. John Carpay. John, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, really glad to be with you.
As you can tell, Alan and I are not as calm and have the demeanor that you do. But, we can be that way. Obviously, you can't be that way when you're overseeing cases and law and, there's a process and all that. But we really appreciate having you on. Alan, I'm going to go ahead and let you go because I think it's John's article that he wrote that really upset you this time.
Yeah, but I think before we go to this article on
go for
transgender people in prisons together, I think we should do the one of our trucker convoy leaders and let John explain exactly what happened there.
Yeah. So the verdict came down. Tamara Lich and Chris Barber both found guilty of mischief, which is a very minor crime. In the big picture, if you can compare it to rape, now known as sexual assault, murder, theft, large theft, property damage, large scale fraud, there's a whole lot of things that are a whole lot worse. But they were both convicted of the crime of mischief. And what is alarming is not so much the conviction per se. I have not had a chance to read through the 106-page ruling, but I would say even if that, and they were acquitted of the other charges, so that was great. Even if they were justly acquitted, even if they were justly convicted of mischief, there's a big problem where the Crown prosecutors in the province of Ontario say that they don't have enough resources to prosecute the rapists and murderers who are, in some cases, walking away without a trial because they missed that 30-month deadline that they have to meet. If you don't get the accused person to a trial within 30 months on a major crime, the accused person walks. So basically, we've got accused murderers and rapists are walking free in Ontario while the Crown prosecutors spent 45 days in court to get mischief convictions for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it wasn't true, it'd be funny. You know what I mean? Because it's so, I don't know what the word is, Dad. What's the word? Ridiculous?
Well, it's frustrating.
And it's obscene. It's obscene as well. To think that somebody's accused of murder or rape, and not all the accused persons are guilty, of course, right? So there should be a trial. But you have these accused murderers and rapists walking away scot-free, and hey, congratulations, Ontario Crown, you got your mischief conviction for Chris Barber and Tamara Lich. Just obscene.
Yeah, it is. The reason why I'm saying it's ridiculous is because, I mean, these people were trying to do everything they could to work with the police in Ottawa and to make sure that everything was organized and everybody was following the rules, and they had meetings, and they had podcasts, and they were trying to make everybody aware of what's going on. And for a lot of citizens that were there, they said it was the most peaceful, well organized thing they ever experienced. The sidewalks were clean of snow, where they weren't before. I mean, it goes on and on and on. All you hear about is, there was noisy blowing of horns, truck horns. Well, there was some of that, but there also was a curfew, and nobody violated that curfew. It just, these poor people had their lives turned upside down for the last 3 years. Ridiculous. But anyway, one of those things. So what happens to them now? Are they, there's going to be
a sentencing hearing is going to be later this month, I believe April 16th or 17th, but in a few weeks, there'll be a separate hearing, and the judge is going to pronounce sentence, which will be very interesting because typically these crimes, mischief might get you, slap on the wrist or 10 hours of community service or something quite mild. Tamara Lich has already spent 49 days in jail total, which is also outrageous when you consider what she's been charged with, and treated as if she's some dangerous, violent murderer. So we get a sentencing hearing, and then the Chris Barber and Tamara Lich will discuss with their lawyers whether or not to appeal. It's also possible that the Crown might appeal the acquittals on the other charges, and so that remains to be seen whether there's appeals on our side or the side of the Crown.
So the Crown's going to waste more time, more money, possibly, to continue on and ignore murderers and rapists.
It's fanatical. It's ideological.
It's weird,
and it's a breakdown in the rule of law. You saw this double standard a few years ago on Canada Day at the Manitoba Legislature. There's some Aboriginal protesters who tore down a big metal statue of Queen Victoria that was sitting on this big marble or stone square. And so you got a metal statue that's on top of a big stone square. And these Aboriginal protesters took chains around that statue of Queen Victoria, tore it down in broad daylight with police watching. It was criminal conduct to willfully destroy somebody else's property, including public property, is a criminal code offense. But they were purportedly, they were protesting against the residential schools situation, and the residential schools were set up during the reign of Queen Victoria. And so they tore down the statue of Queen Victoria in broad daylight. And then the Crown prosecutors announced, we're not going to prosecute this. It's just not in the public interest. And it's a double standard because the protesters there were protesting against residential schools and the harm that they say was inflicted on Aboriginals through these schools. And by the way, I'm totally in favor of peaceful protest, but this is going beyond peace. This was flagrant, blatant destruction of property, which is criminal conduct taking place in broad daylight, police watching, and there's just no enforcement. Why? Because there was sympathy for the cause that they were protesting for. Whereas with Chris Barber and Tamara Lich, there's decidedly not, at least not amongst most of the politicians, the media elites, the legal establishment, there's not sympathy for their protest against the lockdowns and vaccine passports. So it's a double standard.
So John, let me ask you this. What do Canadians do? I mean, it's in our face. We see the compromise. We see the favoritism. We see they hate freedom. It's like we're occupied by some agenda, some different rules. Justice isn't blind here. It's picking and choosing who they like and who they don't like. What are Canadians supposed to do? Like, what do we do? Like, how do we get back to just order? And, because we're seeing it now. It doesn't matter what the protest is. There's lots of protests. I didn't know about the one you were talking about. But there are lots that we see. They block off the streets. They do a whole bunch of horrific stuff, totally worse than what happened at the trucker convoy. They get nothing. Trucker convoy gets totally, the punishment is the process. We see it happen every single day. What are we supposed to do about it?
Well, number one, Corey, what we got to do is change governments.
Well,
that's, come on. That's the number one thing.
I want to know what John has to say. I know I hear what you have to say every day on the phone. I hear it. But John, what do you have to say?
Well, changing governments is that can be a very good thing. However, the deeper thing is the politicians. The law follows politics, politics follows culture, culture follows education. So we have to educate our children and our grandchildren and ourselves in what the free society is all about, a free and virtuous society where individuals have their freedoms of conscience, religion, expression, association, peaceful assembly, where those freedoms are respected by government. That comes from a culture where everybody understands the rights and freedoms in their minds and cherishes rights and freedoms in their hearts. And so we have gradually, the last 50 years, maybe more time, maybe less time, but I'll just say 50 years, we have been moving away from a culture where people understood that government should be our servant, not our master, and the government should respect our basic human rights and our constitutional freedoms. We've moved away from that to a woke, progressive society where there just isn't that same sense of the rule of law and the law being applied equally, where you get punished for bad behavior, but not because the government dislikes your politics. And so we need the cultural change, and that comes through education in the formal sense, elementary school, high school, university, but also informally, just through the culture. What kind of a culture are we building? And that's the long-term solution.
Well, I know that's what you guys are trying to accomplish there, right? Is education. You do some materials for education. Is that correct?
We've got a charter curriculum on our website, at the Justice Center website. And we have modules on freedom of expression and freedom of association and freedom of conscience and religion. And we're working on more modules. And it's already been taught in a private school. And we're hoping that, initially the homeschoolers will start using it, and then the private school people. And eventually, if the public schools are still around, they can start using it as well.
Yeah. What about common sense? I got one more question. What about common sense? Where did that go? I mean, does the law not recognize common sense? I think it would. Like, can someone say, oh man, my feelings were hurt, so I went and totally destroyed property, and the judge go, oh man, I'm sorry about your No, common sense says you can't destroy property, no matter how hurt your feelings are, right? Where's common sense in any of this?
That's part of the cultural decline. I think common sense is not as common as it used to be.
Go ahead.
I think part of the problem is how we view things. A lot of people blame the government, but really the real blame is the people. It's like, here's what the government is doing. Government's making this rule and this rule and this rule. Well, the people need to stand up and say, no, we are not going to abide by that. It reminds me of Acts chapter 4, where the disciples were threatened. And in verse 18, it says, so this is the authorities, they called them and ordered them not to preach or teach at all in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John answered them, whether it's right in the sight of God for us to listen to you rather than to God, you decide, for we are unable to stop speaking about what we have seen and heard. And after threatening them further, they released them, and they found no way to punish them because the people were all giving glory to God over what had been done for this sign of healing. had been performed on a man over 40 years old. So then these guys went into a prayer meeting. You know, the interesting thing is the threat of government trying to make the sheep do what they want them to do has been along from the age of time. But what people need to do is decide who rules you. Is it the government or is it God? And if it's God, do you understand what God wants in the whole realm of humanity? And I just think we got to get back to God. It's that basic. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Go ahead, John.
Well, they said as well, we're going to obey the laws of God rather than men. So they were law-abiding citizens, and they would follow the laws of the Roman Empire. But there's kind of a line in the sand. And then if the authority said, well, you're not going to preach about Jesus, they said, no, we are. And, you know, even after facing, and St. Paul got flogged and he got jailed. And I think ultimately he was beheaded at the end of his life. So, you know, there's definitely that, you know, we have our God-given conscience that we have to live by. And sometimes there's a conflict between, you know, what the government says and what your conscience says. And then it's difficult to follow one's conscience. But, you know, a lot of people have, to their credit. You look at the tyranny of these vaccine passports, and there are so many people who said, you know, and they gave up their jobs, or they got kicked out of university for saying, I'm not going to get injected with this novel vaccine, and they suffered for it. And those people are heroes that I have a lot of respect for.
Amen. Do we have time?
Talk about it.
All right, let's talk about what's going on in our prisons.
No common sense.
I saw a television show just a little while ago of a lady who was incarcerated in a prison and found out that a transgender who was a person acting as a female but was a male ended up being her roommate, cellmate in jail, and she had to go through the process day in and day out of watching him shower and then he watching her shower. And that's the thing that stuck out to me. And now I find out in Canada, we have this same harassment that's going on with people who are thrown into our prisons here in Canada.
Yeah, this has been going on since 2017. So it's been about 7 years now. Prior to 2017, the rule of the Corrections Canada, or Canada Correctional Services, so the federal prisons, if a guy went through he went all the way with transgender, got the whole surgery, removal of his male parts, at that point, he could ask to be transferred into a women's prison. And if his male parts were completely removed, then the request would be granted. In 2017, we passed Bill C-16. And so we added gender identity and gender expression to the Human Rights Code and to the Criminal Code. And ever since 2017, all a guy has to say to get into a woman's prison is, I'm a woman, I feel like a woman, I identify as a woman. That's it. He doesn't need surgery, doesn't need to be on, you know, hormones. So you get guys with their, you know, complete, normal, intact male genitalia get into women's prisons upon request, simply by saying that they identify as a woman, and that's good enough. So they get transferred. Well, you can imagine what's been going on. It's been hell the past 7 years. Women have been raped. Women have been subjected to inappropriate comments and sexual harassment. There's even case of female prisoners who were in a healing support group from sexual abuse trauma, sexual abuse that was inflicted by men. So you can imagine this. You get a bunch of women in a counseling group, psychotherapy group, support group, as survivors of sexual abuse from men. And a man gets to go into that group and sit down and join them and say, hello, my name's Susan. I'm here with you today, whatever. I mean, it just destroys that whole group. Like, how are these women supposed to get healing when a man can join into the like a group of like a support group for survivors of sexual abuse? So we've launched a court challenge. The Justice Center has provided lawyers, and we filed the court challenge on Monday, April 7th.
The interesting thing is, one of the things that you said is that many of these women are psychologically damaged as a consequence of the physical, psychological, and sexual abuse that they have suffered at the hands of men. And likewise, transsexuals, female inmates, are a vulnerable group who are entitled to have their needs recognized and respected. I don't understand this whole nonsense scenario. It just frustrates the daylights out of me that we have people in our legal system that see what happens with people that are being abused sexually, and then we actually set up our system to abuse them sexually.
Well, yeah, and it opens the door to that, and it's very sad, and it's minds that are darkened by ideology. So you've got this trans ideology that says that your sex, gender is, whatever you feel like, whatever you want it to be, whatever you identify as. And of course, that's utterly unscientific, but that's the ideology that it's dominant. I don't think it's dominant at all amongst the Canadian people, but it's dominant in a lot of medical circles, in the medical establishment, the education establishment. This is why you have schools that will keep parents in the dark when their son wants to start dressing like a girl at school and using female pronouns and a female name. So it's an ideology that is quite entrenched in the education system, in the medical system, in the legal system. And it's just important that Canadians vote for people who reject that ideology. And we just have good laws that are based on science and reality, and give gender confused people some real help, not try to encourage them on the impossible quest of becoming a member of the opposite sex, which is just impossible in any event.
Well, ideology is a good word for it. It's like idiot-ology.
Idiot logos, yeah.
Well, I got to say, John, we really appreciate you and the Justice Center and everything you guys are tackling. I've got a whole list of other things that you guys have got your eyes on and that you're battling. I don't envy your job. I can't imagine. I could never go through court with a straight face and not just roll my eyes or, bang my head on the desk, because it's just, I can't believe this is where we're at now as a society, as a culture. I'm very disappointed in our judicial system with the judges. That's why they're there. They shouldn't follow in line with culture. They should stay in line with what the law says, and that shouldn't change. The law has been for centuries and centuries, right and wrong. And now they're going along with the wrong is right and the right is wrong. It's upside down. It shouldn't be that way. That's why they're in that spot, not to be blown and tossed by the wind with the rest of culture. It's really disappointing, but I'm grateful that there's voices out there that are speaking up against it. I also am grateful for the wins that you're getting, because you are getting wins, right?
We had, and we might have time on a future show, but we had the Ontario Court of Appeal, the second highest court in the land after the Supreme Court of Canada, ruling that Randy Hillier's challenge to lockdown measures should succeed because the Ontario's lockdowns were an unjustified violation of the right to peaceful assembly. So we had a great court victory also on Monday, April 7th, that we can delve into in a future show if you like.
That'd be great. We'll definitely have you back. We appreciate you, and thanks for being here. Well, Alan, it's great to have John on and the Justice Center and everything they're doing, fighting for our freedoms. But all I can say is, God have mercy on our soul.
Yeah.
In Canada.
Do you know Levin? Have you ever watched the TV program called Levin?
Yeah.
You know how he gets so uptight sometimes, and he's actually yelling about the stupidity of, that's exactly how I feel sometimes. It's like, you know that yelling is not going to help anything, but it's like, I cannot believe the stupidity of society in many respects. It's just unbelievable. And we got to get back to God, and we've got to get back to his rule of law, so that everybody is respected and there's not this nonsense going on.
Well, and I mean, this is why it's important, for people to continue to watch Talk Truth, continue to support us and other voices out there that are speaking this out, because it is not common. You will not see this on mainstream media. And without our viewers, without our supporters, Alan, you wouldn't see it here. And so we're grateful for everybody that reaches out to us, everyone that writes us a letter, comments, sends an email, supports us financially, because we have to continue to speak out. This is absolutely ridiculous. Wrong is now right. Right is now wrong. The Bible has said it over and over again. People are brainwashed, and we are going to continue to do everything we can to push back on this crazy agenda and this evil that's on the world. One of the things you can do is get our free booklet, The Living Stone, A Journey of Transformation. This book will help you strengthen your relationship with God so you don't feel depressed or fearful or worried of the craziness going on in the world. In fact, you'll see hope and light and peace in your heart, because you're connecting closer with the Lord. You can get it by calling our toll-free number, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada, 1-800-445-3450 in the U.S. Get that book. It will help you. It will. If you want to support our mission and keep this conversation and this truth broadcast across Canada, we can't do it without you. We need your support. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com. There's a donate button there. You can click on donate. Many different ways you can give. If you'd like to do it through the mail, many people do. You can send us a check, make it payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association, and send it to 246 Stewart Green, Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. And if you'd like to donate online or get prayer, that's why we have this toll-free prayer line for you. You can call 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.